During the summer of 1864, Union and Confederate forces were locked in a series of battles for control of Atlanta. By mid-September of 1864, the city had fallen, and the once mighty Army of Tennessee was just a shadow of its former self. Realizing the futility of attacking an entrenched Union army in Atlanta, Confederate Commander General John Bell Hood decided to attack the Union supply lines running from Chattanooga, Tennessee to Atlanta. Union Commander Major General William T. Sherman pursued Hood. Hood's plan seemed to be working. Hood struck at Allatoona, then Dalton. Eventually, the rebels would withdraw into Alabama with the Union Army in pursuit. By the end of October, Hood moves his army west, hoping to lure Sherman into a fight. Sherman, tired of the chase, turns his attention to Savannah and begins his march to the sea. As Sherman marched east, he left Hood's army up to the tender mercy of Union Major General George H. Thomas and his scattered troops. Hood knew that for his plan to have success, he needed to react before Federals could concentrate. Hood's plans came into focus. He would move north through Tennessee and defeat Thomas. But Hood's army sat near Florence, Alabama, halted by weather and awaiting the arrival of Confederate Cavalry Commander Major General Nathan Bedford Forrest. On November 21st, Hood started north. Union forces at Pulaski, Tennessee, under the command of Major General John Schofield, quickly retreated north. By the evening of November 27th, Hood and Schofield are opposite each other at Columbia, Tennessee. On November 28th, in a plan to cut off Schofield's line of retreat at Spring Hill, General Hood sent Forrester's cavalry to clear out the Federal cavalry. The next day, the Confederate army would move. The morning of November 29th, two of Hood's corps crossed the Duck River just east of Columbia. With one corps left to hold the Union Army, Hood planned to get between Schofield and Nashville. Wagner positions his troops around Spring Hill to protect the Union retreat route to the Columbia Pike. At 4 p.m., Cleburne's troops arrived and advanced toward the Columbia Pike to cut the Union retreat. Taking flanking fire from Bradley's hidden troops, Lowry and Govan try and push Bradley back to Spring Hill. Though poised to continue the assault, Cheatham orders Cleburne to halt while Brown moves into position. Just yards from cutting the Columbia Pike, the Confederates settled into camp for the night. Throughout the night, Schofield's troops silently pass within sight of the campfires of Hood's sleeping army. When the Confederates awoke the next morning, they soon discovered the Union Army had slipped away. After a heated discussion with his commanders, Hood set his army in pursuit of his missing foe. After slipping past the Confederates at Spring Hill, beleaguered Union troops filtered into Franklin through the early morning. As Schofield's troops fell into position, they started building and strengthening existing breastworks. By 11 a.m., Confederate cavalry under Forrest caught up to the rear of the Union Army at Winstead Hill, and an hour-long skirmish ensued. The arrival of Lieutenant General A.P. Stewart's corps forced the Federals atop Winstead Hill to fall back to the fortified positions south of Franklin. General Hood arrived on Winstead Hill and lifted his field glasses surveying the Union works. He made note of the ground between his army and the main Union line. 2 miles of unobstructed and flat terrain awaited his men. As Hood studied the strong Union position, he did detect one tactical weakness: Wagner's advance line. What Hood could not see was that Emerson Updike had formed a third line, a reserve, behind the Union main line. This line would figure prominently in the battle to come. On the Union left, thick Osage orange branches were positioned as an effective abatis. Local structures, like the Carter's cotton gin, were torn down and their timber used to fortify the Union works. In preparation for their assault, the Confederates aligned themselves along a 2-mile front. Their lines were formed into columns of brigades. At precisely 4 p.m., a signal flag was raised, and 20,000 hardened Confederates stepped forward to their destiny. Union soldiers could initially see little through the hazy air, but they could hear the growing sounds of the rebels' bands that marched with the troops. Just before reaching Wagner's advance line, the Confederates formed into battle lines and continued the assault. Granbury's men struck the line first. As the Confederates struck Wagner's line, the Federals broke in mass confusion toward the main line. Hood's men used this mass of men as a human shield to continue the assault. After shattering Wagner's men and with cries of, "Go into the works with them," the Confederates pressed on, aiming at the break in the Union works just south of the Carter House. The first to hit the earthworks was Cockrell's men. Within seconds, his brigade disappeared. Advancing through a blizzard of Union musket balls and canister, Confederate soldiers, including many senior officers, began to fall in droves. Brigadier General Hiram Granbury is shot through the head. Brigadier General States Rights Gist is mortally wounded, leading his men to the Union works. A single mini ball struck Major General Patrick Claiborne in the chest, killing him instantly. A bullet strikes Brigadier General John C. Carter, mortally wounding him. With the roar of battle emanating from the south, Colonel Emerson Updike's men rushed towards the disintegrating Union line. Updike's men arrived just in time. Their vicious counterattack stunned the Confederate attackers near the Carter House. The 44th Missouri, pouring fire into the rebels in the Carter House garden, became an anchor for Updike's men. Major Arthur MacArthur of the 24th Wisconsin, father of Douglas MacArthur of World War II fame, is grievously wounded near the Carter House. Leading his men while on horseback, Brigadier General John Adams storms the Union works, which unleashes a volley of fire, killing him instantly. The Federal counter-assault regains the main earthworks east of the Columbia Pike, but stubborn Confederate troops hold on to the Carter House garden area west of the Pike, a true killing zone for those trapped there. Todd Carter of the 20th Tennessee would be mortally wounded during the Confederate assault on the very ground of his boyhood home, the Carter House, fighting alongside his men in a ditch in front of the works. Brigadier General Otho F. Straw is killed instantly with a bullet through his head. Another effort was made to retake the main line west of Columbia Pike as the 112th Illinois was ushered in from the other side of the battlefield. The Illinois troops plunged forward only to be likewise repulsed both by Confederate fire as well as friendly fire. By 7 p.m., Lieutenant General S.D. Lee's corps reached the battlefield. Lee advanced his lead division under Major General Edward Johnson. Johnson's men struck the Federal works and are repulsed. Around 9 p.m., the fighting faded, and rebels who were able to pull back did so under the cover of darkness. At midnight, the Union Army abandoned the battlefield and continued its march to Nashville. The Battle of Franklin was over. Throughout the night, the cries and screams of the wounded and dying had replaced the sounds of battle. By 1 a.m. on December 1st, the Union Army abandoned Franklin and was making its way to Nashville. The losses suffered at Franklin were staggering. The Confederates lost approximately 7,000 men, while Federal casualties would total nearly 2,500. Not as well known as many of the bloody engagements as Eastern Theater battles, Franklin would rank as one of the bloodiest episodes of the Civil War.